Hi there, hello, salut, bonjour. I hope you're doing very well from wherever you're watching at this moment. As always, it's humbling for me to connect with you. Even though I know that many Cameroonians are going through trying times, we still find a way to put a smile on our faces as we try to talk about the things that are going on in that country. Ever since a presidential election that took place on October 12 continues to put Cameroonians ill at ease. And as you know, we talked about in our last episode the situation in Meiganga in the Douala region in Cameroon. And today we're going to do a follow-up and also situate you on many updates around the country. But as always, I also want to take a moment to thank you all for continuously sharing this platform, for showing your support. Some have even gone as far as sending financial support, as we see those that are clicking on the super thanks button and continue to show their concern for the work we do. Thank you so much. It will go a long way to support the fact-finding mission and also continuously put us on the limelight as we continue to shine a spotlight on the situation in Cameroon. We do not want to relent, and we thank you all for your comments. They're very insightful and we take them very seriously. For those of you who've shared within your circles, thank you very much. For those of you who hit the like button, it helps YouTube to share it with other like-minded people. And as you do this, we don't take it for granted. And now we get back into the subject matter at hand. As we know, there's been a lot that has happened within the last 24 to 48 hours. And we want to keep you abreast of the things that are happening in that part of the world. And we start off with a recap of what we just discussed in our last episode, specifically with major updates and new developments on the ground. We're going to do two things in this particular show. We're going to look very clearly at what has happened in the last few days in Cameroon, dates, events, consequences, and at the same time unmask the patterns the regime tries to hide, the way force replicates dialogue, the way impunity survives because people are kept divided and afraid, and the way even heroic figures can die almost alone when the people they fought for don't step forward. Now, let's start on the Ngaoundéré Meiganga axis. Meiganga after the bulldozers, what happened and what it reveals. As you know, on Thursday, the 4th of December, around 4 a.m., a checkpoint near Meiganga was the starting point of a new crisis in Cameroon. A gendarme reportedly slaps and punches a driver during control. That single humiliation becomes the spark. Truckers react the only way they feel they still have power. They park their trucks across the road. The highway is blocked. During that day and the next, the road is turned into a chain of trucks stretching over kilometers. At least 1,000 trucks are immobilized on the Meiganga Ngaoundéré section, with some estimates when you add up the line going into the several thousands. Local residents joined the blockade. They complain about the same things: harassment, arbitrary fines, and living under the mercy of uniforms on a broken road. By day 3, the list of demands is no longer just stop slapping us, stop the harassment and extortion at the countless checkpoints, free the drivers and helpers already arrested in the movement, and even free those arrested during the post-election protests after the vote of October 12. So you see the shift. A road issue becomes a political issue. And that is why when we talk about the issues in Cameroon, some may think that is about politics. It's about civic education and the understanding of public discourse around good governance and democracy. Because everything is intertwined with political action. Now, here is a turning point. The night of December 6 into December 7, 2025, that is Saturday into Sunday. Instead of sitting at a table, instead of sending ministers with signed guarantees, the regime sends in heavy engineering units, bulldozers, caterpillar-type machines. Videos recorded that night show trucks being violently pushed sideways, some cabins crushed, trailers shoved into ditches to open at least one lane. And then the detail that changes everything. Drivers and witnesses say one trucker asleep in his cabin was crushed and killed when a bulldozer rolled his vehicle. The image that circulates is simple and brutal. A body, a flattened cabin, and soldiers in the headlights. Officially, up to now, silence, no clear statement, no admission, no transparent investigation announced. But the fact remains, to open a road, the state chose steel and diesel over words and law. It chose to risk killing workers rather than admit that its own practices at checkpoints are abusive. By Sunday, December 7th, the authorities proudly say circulation has been restored on the Ngaoundéré-Meiganga axis after 5 days. Yes, technically, but at what cost? Trucks destroyed, a driver reportedly dead, a whole professional sector humiliated, and the message that in Cameroon you can die crushed in your cabin because you dared to say enough. That is not restoring order. That is organized chaos in uniform. Now, here is the part the regime never likes to talk about. When force replaces dialogue, the revolt migrates. Because brute force does not end a crisis, it moves it. As soon as word spread that bulldozers had been used and that a driver had died on the Ngaoundéré-Meiganga axis, truckers on another corridor moved. And on Sunday, December 7, drivers and unions announced a ghost town operation and strike on the Douala-West region axis starting Monday, which is today. The justification is explicit: solidarity with the Meiganga truckers and protest against the destruction of their vehicles and the killing of a colleague. So what did the bulldozers really open? They opened the road in Meiganga, yes, but they also opened a new front from the port city of Duala towards the western highlands. This is the regime's old illusion. We can break a movement by making an example of one group. We saw it during the Anglophone crisis. We've seen it throughout different crises in Cameroon. But reality in 2025 is different. Images circulate. Testimonies cross regions. What is done to truckers in Meiganga echoes in garages and markets in Bafoussam, Douala, and beyond. By using the army to solve a social conflict, the government has confirmed to every worker that there is no safe channel for grievance, encouraged more radical forms of protest, like shutting down entire corridors. That is what governing by fear produces: short-term obedience, long-term rebellion. And in the middle of all this, a very different voice appears. A communiqué from Maître Alice Nkom. And here we're going to talk about what it exposes. Yes, the office of the president-elect, the camp of Issa Chiruma Bakari, through Barrister Alice Nkom, issued a communiqué dated December 7th. And this communiqué does not just say we support the truckers. It goes deeper. She recalls 4 concrete demands. Number 1, the immediate release of arrested drivers and motor boys. Number 2, end to road harassment and extortion, including the scandal of dozens of checkpoints and informal payments on major routes like Douala-Kusiri. Number 3, modern collective agreement for transport workers. Such a modern collective agreement should include decent, regular, secure salaries, real pensions, automatic registration with the National Social Insurance System. And the 4th point is serious rehabilitation of roads, so drivers are no longer punished for delays caused by the state's own negligence. So, she does what the regime refuses to do. She names the system. She then points at the heart of the matter. The crisis is economic and political. It requires a responsible state that listens and reforms. The current rulers are illegitimate, condescending, and allergic to genuine dialogue. And the use of bulldozers to push workers' trucks off the road is described as unjustifiable violence against unarmed people seeking nothing more than justice, dignity, and respect. In one context, she exposes the regime's favorite trick: pretend that everything is technical, a traffic problem, a security operation, when in fact it is political, a question of who counts as citizen and who doesn't. Now, let's move from the road to the river, from Meiganga to Duala, from truck cabins to Ngondo. On December 1st, 2025, just days before Ngondo's ceremonies, George Anise Ekane, a Sawa son of Duala, veteran opposition figure, leader of Manidem, and recent supporter of Issa Chiruma Bakari, dies in detention in a military health facility in Yaoundé. Under the regime. Here again, the regime would like the story to be simple. An old man with health problems who unfortunately died of illness, but under care with an investigation promised, despite the fact that he was being detained for heinous crimes against the state. The facts, though, when you remove the makeup, are harder. He was arrested in Douala on the 24th of October, in the middle of the post-election crisis, accused of grave offenses and insurrection for his political stance. He was 74 years old, suffering from serious respiratory insufficiency, and the regime knew about it. His oxygen concentrator, the machine that helps him breathe, was confiscated or at least kept out of his reach by security forces. His lawyers and family sounded the alarm repeatedly. He was struggling to breathe, struggling to eat, and their requests for proper hospitalization were ignored. He died in the custody of the state, not in his bed, not surrounded by his family, but in a system that saw him first as a threat, not as a citizen. Now, here we are. It's December. It's Ngondo season. The traditional Sawa assembly issues a communiqué. It expresses condolences to the families of Ngondo Black and Anise Ekane, calling them valiant sons of the Sawa people. On paper, that sounds like honor. In reality, many Sawa and non-Sawa voices say one thing: it's not enough. Why? Because it stops at sadness and eulogy. It does not call things by their real names: arbitrary arrest, confiscation of medical equipment, political death in detention. It does not call for justice, investigation, and mobilization. In short, the Ngondo text mourns, but it does not resist. And that is the painful part. For years, people have criticized Duala and the Sawa elite for being too quiet in the face of national injustices. Too quiet when other regions were crushed. Too quiet when Anglophone towns were burned. Too quiet when Bamileke strongholds were targeted. Too quiet when the North bled. Now, one of their own, a son of Duala, who spent his life building bridges beyond ethnic lines, dies under obvious abuse, and the official traditional voice of the city is still cautious, almost timid. That timidity is not neutral, and we have to say this clearly without insulting ordinary people. Here is how fear and passivity feed impunity. The regime in Yaoundé has survived since the 1980s, not only because it is brutal, but also because it has been very successful at making people feel powerless, isolated, or divided. Look at the last few weeks. When post-election protesters were shot in different cities, we had a few days of outrage, then life went back to normal. When Ekane's oxygen was taken away, many were shocked, but most stayed home. When a trucker is crushed by a bulldozer in his cabin on the Ngaoundéré Meiganga axis, there is anger in the sector, but not yet a nationwide red line. This is the harsh truth. A regime that kills, suffocates, and crushes people will continue if each community only reacts when it is their own, and even then reacts with half measures. Even the best leaders notice this. When someone like Anise Ekane, who spent decades speaking, writing, organizing, taking risks, ends up arrested, humiliated, deprived of oxygen, then his body is almost mutilated because they're trying to do a forced autopsy that the family rejects, and his corpse is pushed into a mortuary. without a massive, sustained response from the people he tried to defend? What signal does that send to other would-be leaders? They ask themselves, if I speak honestly, will anyone stand up when they come for me? If I risk my life, will the people I am fighting for stay on the balcony? This is one of the most perverse victories of the regime. It does not only repress bodies, it discourages consciences, including among those who could lead resistance by making them feel they will die alone. And yet, on the other side, you see sparks. Truckers in Meiganga refusing to move on, even when local authorities beg them. Drivers on the Douala-West axis choosing to amplify the protest instead of waiting or watching in silence. Sawa voices, especially younger ones, openly criticizing the Ngondo communiqué as too soft, calling for stronger language and real civic action. So we are at a crossroads. Either communities continue to issue polite communiques and go back to business as usual, or they accept that without citizens stepping up, no leader, no president-elect, no traditional elite can change anything alone. I don't want to get into the social media frenzy about Anise Ekane supporting Bamile case or supporting a Babana. I don't want to get into that level of, let me call it, social media buzz. Let's stay with the facts and focus on what matters, because there are issues that we don't want to delve into because you easily get into muddy waters and there's no way to come out. It's a rabbit hole. So for us, the assignment is clear. Let's call things by their names. Unmasking the pattern. The order of the regime is manufactured weakness. When the regime confiscates an old man's oxygen machine and causes his death, illness, uses bulldozers at night on workers' trucks and calls that restoring traffic, opens investigations that clearly lead to no accountability, and simultaneously frightens, divides, and seduces communities into staying quiet, it is not just governing badly, it is a strategy. A strategy where chaos is created by the state. Then the state presents its own violence as the only remedy to that chaos. And the population traumatized, isolated, and ends up lowering its expectations. If we don't unmask this dynamic, we simply keep reacting to each individual scandal. One death here, one strike there, one communicate today, another tomorrow. But when we unmask it, we see a bigger picture. Meiganga is not just about a slap and a bulldozer. Ngondo is not just about a short condolence note. Ekane is not just one more political prisoner who died. They are all signals of the same system. A system that counts on our weakness, our tribe versus tribe debates, our fatigue, our fear to turn every gross atrocity into a passing headline. And to quote someone like the late Charles Ateba Eyene, he used to say it very clearly, despite being a product of the CPDM party. His words, ils ont normalisé l'écart et écarté la norme. It rings very true to circumstances like today. So, as we close, let's bring this home. Today, the Ngaoundéré Meiganga Road is technically open, but it is an open wound. A truck driver is reportedly dead, crushed by a bulldozer sent by the state. And now other truckers are preparing ghost town strikes on the Douala-West axis. A Sawa leader, George Anise Ekane, lies in the mortuary after being deprived of oxygen in detention, and a forceful autopsy conducted on his body without his family's consent. The Ngondo assembly has spoken, but softly, and a regime with 43 years of practice continues to test how much the people will tolerate. No one is asking ordinary Cameroonians to become superheroes overnight, but at minimum, we have to stop doing the regime's work for it. Stop swallowing the line that things will calm down if we keep quiet. Stop attacking each other along ethnic lines while the same machinery hits us region by region. Stop leaving those who resist alone when the cost comes. The day the driver in Meiganga, the Sawa intellectual in Duala, the student in Biya, the teacher in Marwa feel that if they are attacked for justice, they will not stand alone, that day, the calculations in the palaces of Yaoundé will change. Until then, the bulldozers will keep rolling, the oxygen machines will keep disappearing, and the communiques will keep sounding braver on paper and weak in practice. And that is exactly where the regime knows how to play the long-term waiting game. As you've heard, there's not been any remaniement ministeriel, which means no formation of a new government ever since President Biya, who was proclaimed the winner of the October 12 election, was sworn in by the National Assembly, again proclaiming his victory for a 7-year mandate on top of the 43 years he has already been in that office. And yet, it's already December 8th, 2025. We are yet to see him out in public executing any of his functions as president, apart from a glimpse within the space of the Unity Palace, choreographed and very curated, well-crafted out communication video pieces showing him in action with some visitors. But then, we're telling you that even opposition party leaders who were supposed to be on the ground working are quiet. Why? Because they are all waiting for the recompense of not opposing the regime in Yaoundé during this presidential election that passed. And that is why they are waiting for things to cool down. Cameroonians, you have to be alert. And as always, stay vigilant and stay away from propaganda. Because as long as the spotlight continues to shine on Cameroon, the regime in Yaoundé would be ill at ease. Cameroonians have suffered a lot, and we're saying 2025 is the turning point. Take care of yourself, take care of your neighbor, and don't just keep your eyes open, keep your courage awake too. And until the next one, may God bless Cameroon.